From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Friday, October 17, 2025. Australia's about to get caught in the middle of a vicious trade war between the US and China, with Beijing flagging new export controls on the critical minerals essential for modern technology. One of Donald Trump's most powerful officials, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, is now talking about America and its allies decoupling from China. It's an unassuming suburban home in Western Australia, but now it's at the centre of allegations of a vote-rigging scandal involving a huge native title settlement. More than 100 Noongar people who are eligible to vote for the board of an Indigenous corporation are registered to the same address, adding to fears within Aboriginal communities about the integrity of the system. That's an exclusive by our Indigenous Affairs editor, Paige Taylor, live now at theaustralian.com.au. Former Coalition Cabinet Minister Linda Reynolds is taking aim at Labor's most powerful women, Finance Minister Katy Gallagher and Foreign Minister Penny Wong. And it all goes back to Brittany Higgins. Today, The Australian's revealing Reynolds, who's already won defamation proceedings against Higgins and her husband David Shiraz, now wants federal parliament to investigate whether Wong and Gallagher misled the parliament or committed an act of contempt in their furious pursuit of false claims Reynolds covered up Higgins' rape. Today, Stephen Rice and I look at Reynolds' seemingly unstoppable crusade. Linda Reynolds is a woman on a mission to clear her name and, it would seem, to pursue some righteous vengeance against the people who she believes has wronged her. Stephen Rice is The Australian's New South Wales editor and he's been covering this story since the beginning. Stephen, this is all part of the ongoing Brittany Higgins matter. Linda Reynolds was Brittany Higgins' boss in federal parliament when Brittany Higgins said that she was sexually assaulted. Linda Reynolds sacked Bruce Lemon, the man who Brittany Higgins accused, basically on the spot because he'd come back to the office after hours against the rules. But it's what happened after that that has caused her a huge amount of distress. She's won a defamation action in the WA Supreme Court against Brittany Higgins and her husband now. And now she's going after some of her political enemies. Who are they and what does Linda Reynolds want?
Okay, well, there's quite a long list of Linda Reynolds' political enemies. Let's exclude Brittany Higgins and David Shiraz for the moment, because what Reynolds is trying to do now really is to look at what happened to her, especially in Parliament, during these last 4 or 5 years when she's been under an extraordinary level of attack by the Labor government and previously when Labor was in opposition by the then opposition. So there are 2 or 3 main characters who Reynolds believes not only went after her in a very vicious and immoral way, but also may have misled Parliament. And in particular, Katy Gallagher, who is now the Finance Minister, a very senior Labor minister, but was then, let's call her, one of Labor's chief attack dogs. And she went after Linda Reynolds in Parliament and later in estimates committees very, very viciously.
My final question, Senator Reynolds, was it your decision to send Ms Higgins to Perth for the duration of the election campaign?
Senator Gallagher, again.
That's also subject to police investigation. How handy?
And that was your final question. Thank you.
Senator Gallagher, that was beneath you.
When this scandal first aired on the Channel 10 show The Project, Katy Gallagher and Penny Wong were up in Parliament very quickly afterwards asking questions about what Linda Reynolds had known about this beforehand, because the implication in The Project, no matter what Channel 10 says, Ricey, is that this was a political cover-up, that Linda Reynolds had deliberately concealed a sexual assault for her own political purposes or to protect the government of the day, the Morrison government. Linda Reynolds has always denied that. So what is wrong with, in Linda Reynolds' argument, Labor senators asking questions?
Well, I guess there are a couple of things wrong. And the main one is that Linda Reynolds believes that this was a stitch-up from the beginning, a political stitch-up, that these allegations against her and against various members of the coalition were false. She's not saying that the Brittany Higgins rape allegations were false, but she's saying that the whole idea that there was a political conspiracy to shut down these allegations, to, essentially fob off Brittany Higgins' rape allegations because there was a federal election coming up and nobody wanted to think that there'd been this dreadful thing happened in the office of a prominent Liberal Party person. As it turned out, it became very clear that, in fact, the opposition had known about the fact that these allegations, the rape allegations, were going to be made. The then Labor opposition had known right from the beginning that they were going to be made. So Reynolds is saying that there was a counter-conspiracy, if you like, by the Labor Party to weaponise these allegations against the Morrison government. And she's saying that she never stood a chance in Parliament. There was a complete onslaught of questions against her. And then later on, when this came before an estimates committee in Parliament, Reynolds confronted Katy Gallagher with the allegation that she had known all along about these allegations before they were made public and had weaponised them. Now, Katy Gallagher was outraged by this. She said, how dare you suggest that?
Well, you just alleged that we put you in hospital. You just that I put you in hospital, Senator Reynolds.
You should withdraw.
Well, if
so, you're the victim, not Ms. Higgins. Is that what
Order,
Senator Wong? That's not
nobody takes
Senator
pleasure
Gallagher,
in asking
Senator
these
Gallagher.
questions. Nobody takes pleasure in asking these questions.
Well, not long afterwards, the Australian, that is Janet Albrechtson, and I got hold of texts that David Shiraz had sent to Brittany Higgins, where it becomes very clear that Katy Gallagher knew all along. Shiraz was messaging Brittany, his partner, 4 days before she appears on the project. So in other words, 4 days before this becomes public, saying, Katy, that is Katy Gallagher, is going to come to me with some questions you need to prepare for. She's really invested now. Ha ha. And then later on, Shiraz says to Brittany, Katy Gallagher messaged me. She's angry and wants to help. She's got the context, says they knew something was wrong because they fired Bruce and not you, and so on and so on. So very, very clear that Gallagher knew what was going on before it became public. Now, Labor had always denied and consistently denied that it ever knew anything. So what's happening now is that Linda Reynolds is, let's be blunt, she's pissed off. She's been through the courts. She's won in the courts. The courts have recognised that there was never any political cover-up by her, that she didn't treat Brittany Higgins badly in the aftermath of this rape. Linda Reynolds is very wounded by all this. She's got justice from the courts. Now she wants justice from Parliament. She's saying that Parliament never acknowledged what had happened to her, never acknowledged its own responsibility for the kind of merciless onslaught that she was subjected to. She eventually wound up in hospital with heart problems as a result of all this. So she's now trying to essentially get some change effected in Parliament, the way that Parliament deals with these kind of issues.
It's so understandable that Labor would have been frothing at the mouth at this story, Ricey, that the idea that in the coalition government there was a senior minister and other staff who were willing to cover up a rape, a shocking allegation. But it really strains credulity, doesn't it? If you think about it for more than a minute, would this middle-aged woman and her chief of staff conspire to conceal the rape of a young woman? Probably not. It just only bears a minute's thinking about.
And for what purpose, really? I mean, Linda Reynolds and, as you say, Fiona Brown, what's wounded them most out of all of this is the idea, the claim that they walked past another woman's rape. For both of these women, that's just been unbearable. It's at the root of Linda Reynolds' continuing battle to get some kind of justice. And I don't mean justice in a monetary way, although obviously she's hugely in debt now as a result of the civil legal actions that she's taken, but some justice out of the Parliament. That's what she's seeking here. She wants Parliament to examine its own rules and indeed examine its own conscience about the way this was allowed to unfold.
This whole saga, Ricey, has the elements of a morality play for me, especially as someone who thinks a lot about issues of feminism. You hear about a young woman being badly done by and you think that's terrible. But then Brittany Higgins, as a 23-year-old, very quickly, I think, got co-opted by a movement that was much bigger than her, that wanted this to be about much more than just an interaction between two individuals. They wanted it to be systemic. Big, powerful forces kind of swept her up and suddenly she was all dressed in white, addressing rallies out the front of Parliament, talking about a culture of rape apology and allowing this kind of thing to go on. That has turned out to just not be true at all. But now there are big ethical questions for Linda Reynolds as she pursues some financial justice as well as the legal justice that she's got. She has initiated bankruptcy proceedings against both David Shiraz and Brittany Higgins now because she's concerned she's not going to ever get her legal bills paid. That's a real moral quandary, isn't it, for someone who, as Linda Reynolds said, has devoted her life to the advancement of women, pursuing a rape victim?
Yeah, look, I mean, it doesn't sit easily with her, I think. And look, this was something that Brittany Higgins' lawyers expressly threatened her with as they were trying to negotiate their way out of this defamation action. They wrote to Linda Reynolds saying, oh, look, how does it look for you chasing after this rape victim? It's not a good look. Well, I think actually Reynolds is beyond that now. She believes that lots of other people have been wronged in the course of this whole episode, and in particular her Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, who to this day has never recovered from the accusations that she knew about Brittany Higgins' rape and not only did nothing about it, but actively conspired somehow to cover it up. It's essentially destroyed Fiona Brown's life. And I think those kind of things for Reynolds make this idea that, oh, she's going after a rape victim. I think it's gone beyond that. I think in her mind, Brittany Higgins made more than $2.5 million out of the Commonwealth by making demonstrably false allegations about Reynolds. And now Reynolds simply would like at least some of that money back to cover the enormous costs that she's had to bear in fighting to clear her name.
Coming up, will Linda Reynolds ever actually get the money the courts have awarded to her? Where do you think it ends up, Brycey? I mean, do you think she's likely to get any money from Higgins and Shiraz?
Look, I doubt it. I think that money is long gone. I would hope that Reynolds has more chance of succeeding in the action that she's taken against the Commonwealth. Both she and Fiona Brown are suing the Commonwealth on the grounds that they were never given an opportunity to defend themselves in that case, in that Commonwealth negotiation with Brittany Higgins, where they were both slammed as being these uncaring monsters who just hung their employee out to dry after she'd been raped. Reynolds was actively told that she couldn't even attend the mediation meeting to defend herself. The then Labor Attorney General told her, do not attend. You cannot attend this meeting or we will not cover any of your costs. So I think Reynolds would be very happy if the Commonwealth just finally relented. At the moment, the Commonwealth has hired 2 very expensive barristers to defend the action that Reynolds is taking against them. I mean, it's clear they're essentially trying to bankrupt their former political enemy. And it's something that Reynolds feels very deeply that she must fight.
Yeah, you don't often meet a litigant who is prepared to almost sacrifice everything in the pursuit of justice, do you, Ricey? People usually give up before now.
Yeah, especially when you're fighting a litigant like the Commonwealth now with the current Labor government, a political enemy. It's an enormously expensive process for her, and it's not as if she's been getting a lot of money along the way to help with this process. In another world, perhaps she might have recovered some of the money from Brittany Higgins and David Shiraz, but as I said, I think the chances of that are slim.
Stephen Rice is The Australian's New South Wales editor. You can check out his reporting right now at theaustralian.com.au.